Hi everyone, it's me, Krelius, Team Racine Productions MC and producer. And joining me today is Stevie Derrick. Welcome, Stevie.
Hey everybody, what's up? What's up? What's up? How are you?
Great. It is great to have you here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm blessed. Excited for the new year. In good spirits. Been doing a lot of self healing, a lot of self
That's
cleanse,
important.
um, and preparing myself for what the future holds for me. Yeah, so I'm in
Oh,
good space.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So for anyone who's watching who don't know who Stevie Derrick is, want to know more about who Stevie Derrick is, give them a good old introduction of yourself and what you do.
Oh yes. I'm Stevie Derrick. I am a social media influencer, social media personality, all around good guy. I am one fourth of the podcast Him. We've been around for 5 years. We talk about everything in the Black queer community, things that affect us, only us, and I also have Indie Artist Spotlight, where I highlight Black queer artists, indie artists that have a lot of things going on. And I use my platform to promote their art and do a lot of great things with them.
Amazing,
Yeah,
amazing. So let's talk about him. Who came up with the concept?
yeah.
What really inspired you to get into that, and how has that journey been so far?
So shout out to my friend Malik. He is the creator of Him podcast. He was a part of another podcast before that, and certain things didn't work out for that, so he decided to create his own. He reached out to me and two other queer men, black men, and he wanted to just start his own podcast. He felt like the three people that he reached out to had personality, had things to talk about, and thought that us as a group could definitely tackle a lot of conversations that some people are afraid to talk about or have an
Mhm.
opinion on or be judged for their opinions on the topics. And he just brought us together, and we all started on the podcast in the library in New York City, recording on a computer. We didn't jump into the studio quite yet because we had to, get some nicks and some crannies out of the way, some bumps
Mhm.
and some bruises, and figure things out. But yeah, he reached out to me personally and said that, hey, I think I have a personality for this. I think that you could bring a voice of different genres or different, personalities to these topics that we have.
Yeah, yeah.
And at first, I will be completely honest, I declined the invitation
Why
because
is that? Why is that?
because like I didn't feel confident enough to do it. I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't feel confident enough to do it.
Okay.
I also had my own thing going on with like YouTube and stuff, and I was trying to discover my
Mhm.
personality and like kind of get connected with that more than to be
Yeah,
on a
yeah,
broader, platform and like, talk to people every day.
yeah.
But I sat back and I thought about my voice or my opinion or my personality could connect to
Mhm.
so many people. And I
Well,
took it upon
there
myself.
is a certain, there's a certain bravery it takes to put yourself out there and share your
Absolutely.
opinions with
Yes.
people and your opinions on topics and certain things. Because no matter however, we're all black, we're all queer, we're all this, we're all that. Everyone
Yeah.
is still an individual and therefore have their own opinions, and not
Facts.
everybody's going to agree with. So it takes a certain level of bravery to be able to do that. So I get the hesitancy. I get it.
Yeah. So I just, I looked at it from the view of I can touch people and inspire those who are just like me. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how the podcast goes. Is we all have different viewpoints, but we all reach towards a certain audience individually. So yeah, I
Yeah.
just took that upon myself to be like, hey, there's somebody who's just like Stevie who's going to agree and learn and be inspired from. So I just took that with that idea and just jumped into the podcast life.
Yeah, and that's so important. Tell me some of the topics that y'all have discussed at length on the podcast.
We've talked about almost everything. We've talked about homophobia in the barbershop. We've talked about mental
Mm-hmm.
health. We've talked about sex. We've talked about
Mm-hmm.
relationships. We've talked about COVID a lot because that's the topic of
Of
discussion right
course.
now. And we talked about queer representation, how important that is. And we've also had very, very intellectual conversations based on just us growing up in our homes, in our family, and how that
Mhm.
affects us as queer black men. And we just tied that all together to create Him podcast, and it's been a great journey thus far. We've been together for 5 years. There's nothing I would change. The lineup of people on the podcast of the group has changed a little bit,
Mhm.
but the message has stayed the same. We just talk about things that affect the Black queer community and make
And
sure
is
we
there
keep it.
Oh no, finish
You're
what you were
good. No,
saying.
go ahead.
Yeah. Is there anything from, any of the episodes that you've recorded, over all this time where something that stands out where you learned something like from being in that space with those others and it really impacted you in a way like, yeah, wow, I never really thought about this before in this way, or you really learned something that you've taken with you now. Talk to me about if anything like that has happened.
So yeah, I think the discussion around mental health. Every
Mm,
one of my members on the podcast, my co-hosts and my friends, they have discussed how important taking care of your mental health is. So recently this year, actually 2 weeks ago, or yeah, 2 weeks ago, I started my mental health journey. I'm currently in therapy now, and figuring out a lot of things that I needed to figure out and thought I could figure out on my own. Now, granted, I interjected and got into the conversations of it's important to take care of your mental health, but I wasn't taking care of my own mental health. But I thought it was okay for me to give the message for people like, yeah, make sure you're doing whatever you could. I've
yeah.
also always been the type of person to think that I can handle things on my own. I just had that type of personality,
Mhm.
and I had to change that. And every time we have the conversation, all of the members would be like, "I'm in therapy, and it's working for me." And I'm just like, "I'm
Mhm.
gonna get in, I'm gonna get in." And then I took the initiative to just go for it.
Yeah.
And it's been great. I kind of
Yeah.
missed my session yesterday because my therapist was out sick, and I felt traumatic. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm missing my session. I need her." But I was able to reschedule it for Friday. And yeah, I think the mental health. Anytime we talk about mental health or something that could improve our everyday life, have been
Yes,
the hugest
yes.
highlights of the podcast when we record.
And that's important too, because in many Black communities, mental health isn't necessarily focused upon and talked about, and the
Absolutely,
importance of it has not necessarily been stressed in many Black
exactly.
families, in many Black communities, and for many Black queer men who had to grow up in these communities and families and kind of navigate life a certain way. There's a certain strength that you develop
Yes.
where you've had to lean on yourself more than once on many occasions. You've had to get
Mhm.
yourself out of certain things, learn how to navigate, and many of these things by ourselves, because
By yourself.
many times because being queer was involved in some way, shape, or form, and therefore whatever it was, you were not able to share with any and anyone that was close to you. So
Absolutely.
many of us take that into our adulthoods, and then we still think like, you know what, girl, I'm
I got
just gonna
this.
be,
Yeah, yeah,
I got this.
yeah.
And it does take, a big mental toll, a big mental strain, and
Yeah,
that contributes many times to deteriorating mental health when it comes to Black queer people. So
yeah,
it's very important, very, very
yes,
important. I fully connect with that.
yeah.
I know so you've been using your platform, of course, to speak about these topics and themes, but you've also been using it to highlight, indie queer artists. Talk to me about the indie artist spotlights.
Okay, so every time I mention indie artist spotlight, I have to give a huge shout out to the queer group of Erie. They
Mhm.
had a project that came out called Niggas in Brooklyn, and
Okay.
they reached out to me because they were a guest on him podcast, and they said that they were looking for someone to interview them for their interview segment on their, promoting their project. And I was
Mhm.
just like, y'all are reaching out to me. I'm like, okay, this is a little something different from me. I know I had the personality to interview, but it wasn't the first thought on my mind. I had other things that I
Yeah.
wanted to do. And once I finished that interview, I'll never forget it. Once I finished, I said to myself, I can do this. I have a huge platform. I can do this. I'm on a queer podcast every day. Even if I need to interject or put their projects on there in some way, some fashion, I'm going to do it. So I sat down and I said to myself, how could I create a segment that is the safe space for Black queer artists and also have their art be promoted? I
Yeah.
said, you know what, Steven? Listen, get this. Start setting it up. Start reaching out to artists. Start promoting that you're looking for artists to promote. The artists are going to get behind you because one, you have a huge platform, and they already know you have a beautiful spirit of supporting. Because I supported way before I started even doing this. If I
Yes.
could switch my middle name, I would switch my middle name to support because that's all I've been known to do, and I'm always
Yeah.
going to do that. So yeah, it's been a great ride. I've collectively done maybe 30 artists already, and that's over the
Oh,
span of a year.
wow.
Yeah, 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 and
Mhm.
it's been so amazing to actually one on one have interviews with them. also get into their music, and I also work with artists and photographers. So I was able
Mm-hmm.
to get into their art and just like feel exactly what they were doing or what they were feeling when they were creating their art. So it's been amazing. I'm so excited for what next year is going to bring. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be dope. I got some things festering up in this brain.
I
And yeah,
love it.
it's amazing. Yeah.
So, who have you been listening to this week? Let's throw someone out there, some indie artists you've been listening to this week. You can't get them out of your head.
Oh man, listen, I have well, here's the thing. I've created a playlist for these
You
artists.
have.
Yes, I've created the Indie Artist Spotlight playlist, and it's full of all the artists that I've highlighted and worked with. And some new artists are coming because again, I'm going to flourish next year and bring some more
Yeah.
artists to the platform. So, an artist that I cannot get my out of my head, and I've been listening to because these are very very dear to my heart, are Sad Boy Music and Warren Dumas. We are really good friends. And I am 100% behind their artistry because we're so close. But not to say that I'm not behind any of the other artists because they know my connection and my love is real for them as well. But those two have currently been on my playlist nonstop. One reason why Sad Boys Project has been on my mind is because I was a co-writer on one of the songs that him and Warren collaborated on, and sang
Okay.
background. So yeah, it's really dear and near to my heart to those two artists. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, here on the Team Racing channel, we just did a Black and
I
Queer Men
seen it.
music. Oh,
I
you
seen it. I
did?
watched.
Oh,
Oh yes,
yes.
You had two of my indie artists up there. Yeah, you did.
I
Uh-huh.
love that. I
Don
love
Don
that.
Plus and Mar. Those are my babies.
Yes,
Oh yes.
yes, yes. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really great to see just everyone out there doing their thing, and it's really great to uplift each other, promote each other, and
Facts.
really get our stuff out there. It is really amazing. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and I mean thank you for supporting
Thank
since you
you.
saw our podcast.
Absolutely. I had to do my research before I came up here.
Yes, I love it.
You
Hey,
know
so
it.
if people want to follow you, keep up with what you're doing, reach out for collabs or anything, how can they go ahead and do that?
You guys can find me on all social media. That's Twitter and Instagram. Right now is Stevie Derrick _ You can also follow the podcast, which is the Him Podcast, on Twitter and Instagram. And Indie Artist Spotlight, just hit that hashtag. I've taken over that hashtag. I'm gonna somehow, some way trademark it somehow, some way. And you guys just click on that. I'm pretty sure all the artists' work will pop up because I flood the timeline with their work because I'm so proud of them and I just want great things for them to happen. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And the links to that will be in the description. That's to our viewers. And last but not least, anything you want to share with the viewers just about what you've learned, doing what you've been doing for so long?
One message I want to give to the viewers. Don't give up on what you believe in, and don't give up on yourself. Things get hard because there have been some times when I've been doing these projects, even the podcast, and when I'm just like, I am just not here for it. I just can't do it.
Mhm.
And something in some way it gets me right back into it. So just when you think it's over, it's just the beginning for you, and don't give up on yourself. It's coming. Your purpose is coming. Trust me. That's it.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
yeah.
Great way to close it. Great way to close it.
Yes.
Everyone, please continue to follow at Team Racine on all social media and subscribe if you haven't yet. And most of all, thank you for watching. See you, Stevie. See you, everyone.
Later, y'all.